Everybody. Okay, today is September 12th, 2018. It is now 7 p.m. We will commence the regularly scheduled Conservation Commission meeting. I'll call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for participating. Do we have minutes to be approved?
Two sets.
Minutes from August 8th and August 22nd, 2018.
Move to approve individually or both?
Together.
Together.
Package it up.
Package deal. No.
They were made and incorporated already.
Motion and second. Any discussion? There is none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. We'll commence the meeting portion. Request for determination of applicability. 730 Massachusetts Avenue. It requests to continue to October 10th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion.
I have a question.
Question.
So we
Discussion.
have two filings. We know the one is for the propane tank and one is for the natural gas. Are they making any headway on this?
Well, the first one's for the generator, and they just need an alternatives analysis. I'm not really sure what's holding it up, but the contractor told me that he's concerned that if we didn't approve the gas connection, that could change the location of the generator.
Well, that makes it simple, so they want to see how the gas goes first.
I guess, and since the gas is continuing because the gas company didn't realize they needed to notify abutters on a single-family home project, we don't make them do that on linear projects, or they have a different means of doing it. They notify by cards on a door kind of thing.
Okay. So the request to continue is on the project that includes the generator.
That's the first one, correct, and we just did that, Deb and Sean.
Okay.
Oh, we were discussing, so yes, we need to vote.
Okay. Any other discussion? There being none, I have a motion to continue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Continue to October 10th. Same address, Columbia Gas, request to continue to September 26th, 2018.
So moved.
Yeah, we need to open that public hearing, because technically, consider it open, I guess.
Okay, so before we entertain a motion to continue,
Move that we waive the reading.
reading is waived. What else do you need, Jen?
Nothing, they're just going to go back and notify abutters now, as is required by the regulations.
Okay, so 730 Columbia Gas, 730 Mass Ave, Columbia Gas is open. The reading has been waived. We'll entertain a motion to continue.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that's unanimous. Stiles Street, lots 33, 34, 37, Eugene Willis. Gene, if you'd be kind enough to take a seat or go to the podium, wherever you're comfortable.
Good evening, I'm Gene Willis, and I'm the owner and applicant of the property out there. Back in the early 90s, I came before the board to plant black walnut trees. And over the time, there's 3 locations where they've been planted, and I had owned an abutting residence, but now I've sold the land, the residence, and just own the land, so my only access is up through Stiles Street. So in between the 2 locations where the fields are, there's a wood road, and there's a culvert that's seriously deteriorating. There's actually 2 culverts down there. And so I need to replace the culvert and upgrade the road a little bit, chink it up a little bit. Jen's been out there. She saw the culverts. My proposal is in conjunction with a forest management plan that we did, and in the thing it references the pages that reference page 2 of the determination application. Down the bottom, it shows those 3 pages. Page 11 of 21, other practices, STEW1, maintain culverts at 2 stream culverts, and then other practices, maintain and improve access road. So basically, I just want permission to be able to maintain that access between the 2 fields, continue to mow the fields for the walnut harvest which hasn't happened yet because it hasn't had enough volume. But when I was in front of the board in the 90s, I said it's 30 to 40 years out before the nuts start getting enough to do that, and 40 to 80 years out to cut the trees. So we're just getting on that in 30 years, and I've met a couple of people that will be going out there, and they'll need to access the 3 locations with a pickup truck, not a tractor.
So under the forestry regulations, which I provided to Jean, and I've given a copy to you, there's some requirements. You know, the first was that they prove it's a legally constructed access for forestry activities. Both Jean and in speaking to Lou this morning, have stated that the road has been there forever, probably predating the Wetlands Protection Act. So I think we've crossed that hurdle of number 16. Under the forestry regulations, it also allows maintaining and improving but not enlarging existing access. And then it talks about crossings, stream crossings, and culverts, and the need to use forestry best management practices, and allowing unobstructed passage of existing flows for at least the 25-year storm. I guess the one thing I would be looking for from at this point in the application is some more detail on the crossings, both the size of the existing culverts and the replacement, since they can't be replaced any larger than they exist unless it's to make them conform to that requirement for the passing the 25-year storm.
I have a point of clarification. There may be some confusion, I don't know, but you had given me the forestry regulations, but is there a difference between applying under the agricultural, the rules I quoted you is agricultural, and it allows nuts and lumber. I gave you all the backgrounds on those sections, so I don't know if it makes a difference, forestry or
I
agricultural,
talked to DEP,
but I came in
and
front.
DEP gave me these.
They are 2 different activities.
So
I
I've
don't
quoted.
know if the regulations differ.
I've given
They
you
do
the
differ.
regulations
They do differ.
where it
So, like,
allows
what-
nuts, and
what-
so I'm going under an agricultural, and that's what I came in front of the board in the 90s for. It was an RDA, it had been a squash pasture, and I've been mowing it every year and fertilizing it. But I do think they're different, and I believe I'm applying under the agricultural section of the
This is being
bylaw.
applied for under a forest management plan, so it's
Because he has a
forestry.
forest management plan on file. And part of that forest management plan is an interim product called walnuts.
Right.
Which is
I'm
an
not sure his
agricultural product.
harvesting of walnuts on these size stands would qualify for the agricultural exemption. It needs to be, you know, for substantial profit. When we give agricultural exemptions, it's to small ag farms, it's not for, you know, sort of roadside collection of walnuts. What's in there isn't harvestable for commercial purposes.
Well, not yet, Jennifer, but there's over 500 trees up there. It's not 3 or 4 trees. I planted over 1,000. It's been culled back to, there's 500 trees in 3 different locations.
You got a whole bunch of things at play here. What we have is I'm going to call it an ancient way. It's an unaccepted public way. Has never been abandoned or hasn't been formally abandoned.
I don't even know if it's a public way. It's been totally on my property. It's
An ancient way.
okay.
So it's there and it's been there. That whole area was agricultural way the hell back, a couple hundred years ago. And a lot of it's reverted to forest. Some of those roads, like Chestnut Street, and that continued all the way through into Andover. When I was in high school, we legally abandoned it in Andover. So that's what I remember, and this is not far from that. So you got part of the rights in the way and maintaining the waterways in that way. You also have the agricultural question versus the forest management practice. I think the forest management practice, undoubtedly, if you were going in to harvest timber now, the agricultural provisions wouldn't apply.
Right.
The fact that you're going in and just continue to let the forest, you're not planting the forest, it's established. It's just growing now.
Yeah.
So on either end of that, under your forest management plan, you could do those types of activities. I think now where we've got this hybrid halfway between a long period of time between 30 years of growth and what a eventually is going to be another 30 to 40 years of harvesting, before harvesting, is what the hell you have, what kind of rights you have, and you're flexing saying that it's agricultural because of the harvesting of.
And I do have contact with somebody, but that's part of the problem. Going from the one field to the other wasn't so much of a problem, but it is now, but it was a tractor. The fellow who's going to take the walnuts is going to do it in a four-wheel drive pickup truck. So and when I had maintenance from both, or access from both areas, it wasn't an issue, but I don't anymore. I only have to come up through Stile. So that, in the interim, in the next few years, I'm hoping he's going to go in there and take the nuts, and then maybe my grandchildren will be in front of you to take the trees. But that road is more, needs to be passable more for him than Mr. Ray and his farming equipment. So that's what brought it, because the culvert's been there forever, and it was starting to get broke down, and I had the guy come in and look at it, and I came to see Jen. I thought under the old RDA that I could just fix it. I came to see Jen last fall, and she said, no, I need to come in front of you. So I've been trying to figure out how to do that best, and I did a forest management plan, and just because I knew it'd have to be in the low flow time now, which is now anyways. So Jen and I we're talking about this since last year, and now I guess I'm to the point where I wanted to do it.
Joe, we put this guy in business back in the 90s.
I'm not asking the question so much as I want to make sure it's on the record of what the issues are, and I think we're in that boundary condition.
He's got in-kind, he's got to make in-kind repairs.
Yeah.
And under forest management and agriculture, my opinion is he has the absolute right, because the land is in current use.
Agreed.
Whether it's 61A or 61B.
There's no 61 on it. It's not in Chapter 61.
Well, okay, well, then it's not, but it's in the same use as it would. He would qualify, I think, if he applied. He has an operation that has been ongoing since 1992. We approved it. I was on the commission.
You approved the planting of the trees.
So,
Right.
The approval was for
we did
planting,
approve.
maintaining, and harvesting.
So
Right.
we allowed him to plant the trees. We allowed him to effectively go into this business.
Right. So I'm just saying from the standpoint, again, having done this on agricultural projects of different varieties, not just forestry, there is a requirement to replace the culverts in kind. I don't know what size culverts are out there. We don't know the best management practices that will be used to take out and remove and replace those culverts. So what I would just ask is that we get, the diameter and size of what's out there, so that what we replace is in kind, and that the practices that will be used to do the work. I mean, obviously, the creation of new access is required to be done under frozen ground. I mean, no flow, but now we're getting into hurricane season, which things are going to be a bit mucky out there.
I could probably do it in frozen times. I didn't,
Right.
Well, prior to-
I think that would probably-
Before you get to the frozen ground, you can comply with what Jen's asking for, right? She wants to know sizes and how, your procedure and how you're going to do it and when.
Right.
Right.
Just so
Well-
that we ensure that all the best management
Okay.
practices are
BMPs.
being followed.
I'm thinking that the existing culvert might be like 8 feet, and it's busted off, so I'd like to discuss a potential of
8
wide.
feet across?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
but
like-
what's the diameter is more important.
Oh, I think it's an 18-inch pipe,
You can-
but it's only eight
think
feet,
the
and the
diameter-
ends have
Right.
been breaking off by Kenny riding over it with the tractor, so I don't even really know how wide it was originally.
But you can figure that out.
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
absolutely figure that out, and you can give Jen the numbers she needs. She needs those numbers.
Okay.
And then you're doing an in-kind replacement.
So are we talking about perennial stream, intermittent stream, just an equalizer on flat ground?
There's been no assessment of the resource areas.
I've been out, I've seen it dry at times, but it does have flow through it.
It's probably a borderline intermittent level of.
So I'm asking such a question that, there's no need for head walls, you're just putting a pipe beneath, replacing an old corroded pipe with a new pipe with similar hydraulic capacity.
The only thing I was thinking I might do would be that, I want to use the corrugated plastic pipe, and they have like ends that you put on them, because I'm going to put some stone over the pipe, and I figure those ends would kind of hold that stone from, but that's what I'm looking at, a pipe, and you know what I'm talking about, Joe?
I do.
They're kind of, I don't know, they're kind of swale looking. They're made for that.
It's like corrugated flared end.
Yeah, that would, yeah, I'm going to, E.J. Prescott, I want to get one length of pipe, and
So the other piece of that, though, is there's no fill involved. It's not going to be any wider than it currently is.
Nope, I'll take Jen out there. And any material I'm going to be using would be like 1.5 inch stone. You know, no loam or gravel or fill, it'll all be stone.
So if you get us that information, we don't have an issue on whether it's agriculture or forest management.
You're going to
he's
grant him a
really
negative
compliant with the
determination due to the forest management exemption, and we would just write up the conditions that he provide what we're asking for prior to the start of work.
It sounds like the best way to go.
Yeah, just get us the info,
Sounds
and
like
we're
the
ready
best,
to
so
go.
you need the data
Yep.
so that we can have it in the record.
So, and then Jen and I can figure that out, or do I need to come back?
You'd
and-
have to figure it out, come
Oh,
back.
yeah, I'll get it to her, and then I'll come back when you have that information?
Submit it to Jen.
Okay.
What she's asking for, submit it to her, and then I have great confidence. Let's go down the board here. Any questions, Deb?
No questions.
Sean?
Nope.
And Doug?
Not really, but if he's gonna replace the culvert, he should have some dimensions on it,
Yep.
size of the culvert,
Yep.
material,
Yep.
what the depth of it is.
You-
You know, you're gonna road over it, so if it's a shallow pipe,
It-
then I don't know if the plastic is gonna work as
Well-
well as something else.
To that point, it is a shallow pipe, because it's a surface brook, and then I'm going to go over it, we'll take it up with some 1.5 inch stone over the
Yes,
pipe.
I know it, but you're gonna drive over it with vehicles and stuff like
Yes,
that.
yes, that's the whole
And you wanna make
purpose of it.
sure that you're not putting too much of a load on, you don't exceed the capacity of that pipe to handle the load that's going over it. So
Okay.
you gotta make those determinations.
Okay. Okay. And so I thought it was supposed to be done in the fall, but you would prefer frozen conditions.
I think
Okay.
frozen's probably
Yeah,
better, rather than
okay,
making a mess out
Yeah, I
there.
thought you had the
I
dry
mean-
period, and then in the winter you were shut down, but no.
Well, I mean,
frozen-
dry, like a month ago might have been okay. but-
We're out of the
but
dry
I
period.
think we're out of dry.
We're into the wet period now.
Okay, the frozen works for me.
Yeah, frozen's
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
Pray for no snow and lots of frost.
So Jen,
Pray for no snow
So-
and lots of frost.
just tell,
Gene, if you want to write it up, and then
Yeah.
we'll meet out there.
Yep.
Take a couple photos and come back and get it approved next meeting.
So I'll just work with you, and then we'll get back together.
2 weeks enough time? Can you get it done in 2 weeks? Or do you want 4?
Can you give me a month, just, because if we're going to do it in frozen time, in case I have an engineer look at the
Sure.
pipe.
The loading.
What's the date, 4 weeks out?
10-10.
10-10?
10, sure.
Motion to continue to 10:10.
So
Motion and a second, any discussion? Any abutters that want to be heard?
Okay. thank
No
you.
abutters answer, all those in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. See you in October. Yep. All right. Where am I? 209 Johnson Street. An IDA. No idea. No idea.
Did you give us your butter notification already? Your white slips? Okay. That's it. I figured you did, but I didn't see them personally, so I'm just asking. I always forget to ask.
Is this the first time that this is being heard?
Yep.
Okay, so 209 Johnson Street, do you want to, Jen?
We waive the reading.
Reading is waived. We don't have to read on it.
All right.
Is there anything we need to know before they start, Jen?
No, this is a deck replacement, not in kind and larger than is permittable under a small project. It's outside of the 50-foot no build zone. You'll see from the photos in your packets that there is a patio underneath that they also wish to be able to restore at some point. I've put some recommendations in there that,
Okay. All right, why don't you tell us, give us the narrative, and we'll look over your paperwork while you're
Yeah, I
making the
know.
presentation.
This is Corey and Christine Fritz. We are the homeowners at 209 Johnson Street. We're submitting the RDA, as Jen said, to replace an existing deck that had already been there, as well as to expand it, in addition to adding a staircase down to the patio below, as Jennifer mentioned. Really, The deck that had been there previously, we had felt was unsafe. We actually did a project to replace the siding on our home about a year ago, and at that point, that's when we had the deck removed. It was just structurally unsound and didn't seem that it was up to any sort of code, depending on when it was built, but, of course, as we said, we're looking to expand the deck, as well as adding a staircase just as another means of egress. We currently don't have a means of egress off the back of the house on the first floor. You'll see from the pictures that our first floor, we're actually on a hill, so the first floor is up 1 story. So we only have a means of egress out the back. So, out the front. We have talked to our contractor and the building department about using helical piles, which will actually drill straight into the ground without having to dig large holes, I think, which will, have minimal impact to any of the topography of the land. We have already talked to the planning department and, already wrote in here that we plan to place a filtration sock along the buffer zone resource area to prevent any runoff towards the pond.
Did this deck, did it go up to the second level? Was it a 2-level deck?
Yeah, it was a second-level deck.
There was no ground-level deck? It was all second level?
So just the patio that you see in the photos.
If you look in detail, you can kind of see the concrete footings in that flagstone.
Yep. Okay,
There's 3 footings that were there from the original deck.
Okay.
Once again, that deck was deemed unsafe by us and others.
They did have a building permit to remove the deck and reside the house.
Yeah, that permit was done last fall. So that project is complete. And when we did that project, we knew, in terms of looking forward, not having finances at that time to do the deck, that we wanted to move forward with the deck project. We had Jennifer come out and give us a very basic verbal, hey, you look like you're outside of the 50-foot, but once you get started, that's when we'll get into it. Now that we got into it, we're involved with watershed. We've already gone through planning. We received our waiver for the special permit from planning last week. And now we're in front of you folks for the RDA. I think that we've done a pretty involved, full due diligence in regards to all our research, our wetlands biologist, our engineer, surveyor coming out multiple times, and we feel as though that we've hit to the point where we're ready to get full approval from the Conservation Board in regards to this RDA.
Okay. Joe?
Very well articulated project description. I can completely understand it. Simply put, structures in any part of the structure is well outside of the 50, from what I'm seeing. We would have permitted it if it was a brand-new construction anyway. So the process is a good one. Given the level of what they put into this, it's almost an NOI anyway, but I think it's permittable as an RDA, so no questions.
We like to be very thorough. Don't want to waste yours or our time.
That's always a good policy.
This was also, it's kind of a strange delineation. There are a lot of hydric soils in the backyard, and the first time I dug there, I said, you're definitely going to need a delineation. I don't know what this area looked like prior to that pond being there, but there's not much vegetation up gradient of the pond that would lead me to believe that those hydric soils are the result of any current hydrology, maybe some kind of wicking action out of the pond or something, but it's,
This isn't far out of the center, right?
this is, remember the one below it has the dam? We've had a project there, so they're above that.
There's a lot of side slope stuff on.
Yeah, there isn't really breakout or.
The entire hill.
I believe that was man-made by the Summit Hill development.
Could very well be.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go ahead. Deb, go to you.
I really enjoyed your presentation. You make a great team. And your packet is very thorough and very readable.
Thank you.
So, Jen, one of the notes that I see here are that whether or not a no disturb buffer should be established around the pond and monumented.
Right, so they have, you can see sort of in the photo there, hopefully, that there's quite a wide open area to the pond. Generally, we like to see some buffer, and recognizing that this is an existing yard, I wouldn't recommend the full 25-foot no disturb, but your general practice has been to require at least a minimal buffer. They do enjoy use of the pond and access to the pond, so I would also consider keeping, a path or some portion of it open.
Have you discussed this with them at all?
Yeah, I mentioned that this was, that was generally what you might request of them. Every circumstance is different, so it's
What's,
open for discussion.
Historically, when did you guys move there, and what was the condition that you moved into concerning the pond?
I'll take it. We purchased the home in July of 2013. We purchased it from an owner that only owned the property for 6 months and updated the interior and exterior of the home. He purchased it from a bank. This property was bank-owned for over 3.5 years. The property and the yard itself was very well overgrown and unmaintained. The established backyard was as is. There was no major tree removals. There was no, the shoreline, if you would call it, was there for access for what was already there. We continue to upkeep the property as is, with doing minimal clearing in terms to make the property acceptable for our children, this, that, and the other thing. In terms of the home itself, we've only been applauded by our neighbors and residents in town for kind of taking on an overhaul of a home that was an unsightly home on Johnson Street. And so we feel as though we've improved the quality of living in the area. We've also improved the quality of living for us as a family by maintaining this property and bringing it back to what the Nazarian family for 35 years lived there and had a wonderful family there and enjoyed the property itself. So,
Yeah, and I'll tell you, even just being there and taking care of it, and we have a 9 and a 6-year-old, and just them, being out there, and there's actually trees on. There's one almost in this picture, and then there's one on the other side that the whole first year we were there didn't really bloom at all, and then about probably 1.5 years, 2 years after we were there, started blooming. Like it was literally just like, and we had done nothing to it.
Yep.
It was literally just like the property was coming alive again. We saw the house and of course saw the potential of what could be made of it, redoing the siding, things like that, and really just the backyard and that pond actually were kind of what, were the kicker to us, because, 1.25 acres of land in North Andover is not always easy to come by, but it's a fantastic property. And as my husband mentioned, we actually have a neighbor right around the corner on Sutton Hill who, he's not living there anymore, but when we moved in, he was living in the house that he had grown up in, and actually walked over and said that, he was just so happy to see somebody taking care of the house again,
Right.
Because it had been just an eyesore.
So this is the year before they bought it. This is the 2012 aerial of the property.
So you can see from that photo that there is kind of a base shoreline that we kept existing. Never. I mean, there's grass right up to the edge there.
Yeah.
It is. It is what it is, and we maintained it as is.
Is that the most recent aerial?
That's the most recent.
Okay. I don't see any changes to speak of.
There aren't any beaches or docks on the
Not that.
No, I don't think we're going to be out in that.
No, that's
Well,
it's not an
as-
environment for.
As you
for
can,
human-
as you know now, that's
It's-
one of the
it's
reasons
serene.
why I think,
Not swimmable.
it may make sense to have some sort of buffers. I think that might assist with vegetation growth in the pond, too.
So how much of a buffer do you think would be reasonable?
I mean, that's at your discretion, but generally, I think when we've gone minimal, it's been about 10 feet.
Still allowing a pathway for them
Right,
to go down?
something
But bear in mind, they're not asking for any waivers here. A lot of times when we require buffers, there's a waiver request, and we're using the buffer as a mitigation
I just,
tool.
I'm just thinking of Busby on
That was new construction,
an existing lot with pond access.
still new
but-
construction. This is-
Okay,
That was new
you
construction.
can
This
do
is
this
an
as you
existing
wish,
house
I'm
with-
just providing
With
the,
no waiver requests.
If this was an existing house and they wanted to put a new deck on, I think we'd be looking at buffer, but, you know, it's a replacement, not necessarily in kind, so it's bigger, I don't know how much bigger, that I haven't heard, but it's bigger. And they are compliant. I believe in some sort of better appreciation of what that water is and better protection of it, but I'm not sure blocking the view or putting a real vegetative buffer in a tall fashion. You know, it may be.
it could be just a row of shrubs along the
That's
pond.
what I'm looking at, something
Yep.
far less intrusive and still allows them to walk down to it.
I'd be leaning more towards just a prohibition on pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers. That would make more sense to me than any type of a buffer, although I'm not saying a buffer isn't a good idea, but I think that if you really want to make the most impact, and these are people that appear to be invested in their project, restrict what is put down on the ground that will eventually leach into the pond, and that'll do more benefit to the pond by keeping the nitrogen out of it, in my opinion, anyway. I know I only play a doctor on TV, but that's what I think. Go ahead, you guys.
I mean, my thought is just consistency with all the other applicants that come in front of us with beautiful pieces of property that enjoy views, and just trying to remain consistent while still trying to not ruin things for the homeowner. And I'm trying to see where that line is drawn, and so I feel that something should be done to maintain consistency, but at the same time trying to not overly alter what they have out there, and whether that's a low row of bushes still allowing access. I certainly agree. I'm trying to think, is there a way to go ahead and have a buffer there of some sort of natural growth but maintaining it at a certain height? I don't think that's possible. So.
See, it looks like that.
Good, but blueberries, the harvest alone will take care of that.
Yeah. You know, the only thing, I mean, I know I'm repeating myself, but they're not asking for any waivers.
No, I know.
And it's an existing, it's a replacement. It's a different consistency I believe in.
Yeah, let's ask the abutter, the applicant, if that's a concern of theirs. So what we're talking about, we would typically require a physical buffer established. It's vegetation, when we say buffer, but vegetation. It could be shrubs, it can be simply letting it go wild and let it grow up high, which is something I don't think in your instance makes much sense. So I think one of the things we're talking about is planting a low growing height of natural types of shrubs that will blend into the ecosystem properly and still provide you view, but in the same token, provide that physical buffer where some of the nutrients from your lawn can actually be taken up in the growth of that buffer plant material. I mean, we're only probably talking, what's the width of that? 50 feet? What are we talking about?
The width of that shoreline, that's,
50 feet?
maybe 50, 60 feet. So you're talking what, 5 bushes?
5 to 10 bushes, that's all we're talking about.
Okay, what types of bushes?
Well, the type we haven't talked about, but that's, Jed's
Yeah, I
more
think
of the
that's
expert of
highly,
that.
whatever
Wouldn't
your
that be
preference would be.
disturbing the land more?
No.
Like by going through that process of putting in bushes?
You're talking
where-
about a 5-gallon shrub, it's not going to disturb, I mean, you're just going to plant.
Truthfully,
When we say shrub, we're not talking like, not rhododendron.
So that's why I'm asking what type of plant?
Yeah,
Like what
there
would
are-
the visual be of the plant? What would the plant, so that plant would take in whatever runoff would come down to that, to those
Take in more
soils?
than is being done right now. It also stabilized the shoreline so that you wouldn't have any bank erosion. It would put a root system into the shoreline more so than,
There's a pretty established root
Right.
system there at the moment.
seen any change? I mean, it's only been 5 years, but we haven't.
Yeah, I
seen
think with
any
it being
change.
a man-made,
Wetlands
system
protection
that.
act- Wetlands protection act doesn't distinguish one
No,
from another.
No, what I'm saying is that
we saw
The
more
shore-
wildlife while standing there than we see on most sites in the wooded areas of North Andover.
You know,
So-
truthfully, If I can be perfectly honest, it would just make me sad. I mean, you know, yeah, like I said, that pond was part of the reason why we.
But we're not talking about blocking that, not talking about
No, and I
blocking
think
the-
you would leave an 8 to 10 foot section of the pond open. You would just put more of a,
So we went having a discussion of shrubs, the question's a fair one, you know, what type of stuff would you like out there?
I mean, anything that's native, anything.
So my other
High
question
bush
would be is,
blueberry, low bush blueberry.
if we're out of the buffer zone and
Dogwood.
we're not invading into any non-buildable zones, this was already existing, and it's the property has lied like this for X number of years, more than 25, 30 years. There's been this, in front. You can see from, views from 6 years ago that nothing's changed.
This house is gonna be built in late 50s.
53, yeah.
Yeah, that's what would have been my guess.
So the fact that why would we disturb and change it now? Why wouldn't we leave it as existing as is? And conform with all the building codes, the erosion control, so that nothing gets in there. The existing deck and the slight addition to it are not imposing on any sort of flow or disturbance to the land or messing with the ecosystem that is there. This is.
At a minimum, you'd require monumentation of the existing no disturb zone. If you don't want to require monumentation of the part that's open, there is a no disturb zone that should be monumented that isn't disturbed around the pond on the property.
I have no objection to monumentation. I'm just trying to look at some of the recommendations, and I'm trying to look at the one that would actually, in my humble opinion, have the biggest impact, and that is fertilizers.
Except it's the one that's not enforceable.
Well, but you know what? I bet you we wouldn't have to enforce it. I bet you if that's the one we imposed, I bet you we'd get compliance.
I think-
They have a very, they have a very green lawn.
And I'm saying,
Look at how eutrophied the
That
pond
has
is.
no aspect. I can't believe that you would make that remark.
No,
In
I'm
the summer
saying-
that we've had, and
It-
you're going
it
to
is-
say that my grass is green.
So
No,
That's just
that's-
a bit.
pump the brakes.
I know,
Yeah.
I understand, but
Pump the brakes.
that remark
We're
right there
trying-
is frustrating to hear.
I was going in a
It's
different
not
direction.
frustrating.
I'm looking at.
So we're
It
trying to
is, but you
trying
want
to
your
help you.
lawn to be green. That's why.
Trying to help
I'm
you
just
out
No,
saying,
I know
that's
you are,
not.
but
So
that
my-
comment is
So my
uncalled for.
recommendation is, it's all part of the discussion.
Yeah.
So my recommendation would be to just impose the pesticide nitrogen prohibition and not impose a barrier due to the fact that this is a different operation than anything else that comes in front of us. This is not a new house.
I
It's
think
not
the
a new
planning
deck.
board already did impose the pesticide herbicide.
We got a full watershed special permit waiver from planning.
With conditions, though.
We received that letter, and it was uploaded to the viewpoint for the building
But you
permit.
haven't seen it?
We've seen it, the conditions are there, and that is not one of them.
Oh, okay.
So let's try to find out where we are and move this thing off the bubble. It looks like it's a -3 determination, which is the best determination they can get. And since you know my opinion, and since I'm only going to vote if there's a tie, I'll
So I hear the
Let you
passion of
discuss.
the applicant. I'm not worrying about whether it's enforceable or not. I just think they can do the best management on the lawn practice, maintenance practices as possible. I think monumentation isn't even necessary. These folks understand, the value of that, and they've pretty much described that to us. But I do believe that some sort of a buffer zone is what gives you the benefit for the longer-term use, that when in fact the lawn is doing really well and you're getting runoff, you've got some nutrient uptake before it gets to the pond itself through that buffer. That's what that buffer is all about. So I think there's some real value to that, and it can be done in such a way to still make it look aesthetically pleasing. It's going to be a natural type of vegetation. We can select, they can propose, and we can approve, what types of plants those are. So I'm leaning towards the buffer as to being the most effective. Monumentation, to me, doesn't do anything. These people already, they appreciate that already. It doesn't mean anything.
I'm agreeing with Al. I think that no monumentation and no buffer, because it's been there for a while and it's stabilized.
And I agree with Joe's perspective that a buffer zone is important. When we have a project like this come in front of us, we have to examine the entire property that's in front of us with today's perspective of what the wetlands regulations are. And unless we have evidence going back way past 2012, it doesn't change what we have in front of us. So I would go with Joe's perspective.
I have a question, what is, there appears to be some kind of monumentation along the shoreline. that's shown in the
Those
picture.
those
What
are
those things sticking out?
those are $1 solar lights from Target. Those are there for nighttime safety for children and adults to not fall into the pond.
The pond looks like it's an extension of our
Yeah, because when it looks like that, some people think that they can just walk out to it. So those are solar-powered, simple staked
Just
lights.
stick-
Yep,
just
just
stuck in the
stick lights. Yep, that's what you're seeing there.
They would drop off to the.
So that in the middle of the night, you don't walk out to the pond. Yep,
That answers that question.
no problem.
Okay. I guess I have to say that I don't have a problem with leaving it open the way it is. As long as they, careful what they put on the grass as far as
You know,
fertilizing it.
did the planning board already issue a pesticide
I'd have to look
prohibition?
back at their, he's saying they
But they're
didn't,
not.
but
Okay,
I
so
just got
You can
Something
the,
we can do.
you can pull that up. I
I have
uploaded
it.
their decision,
I have it.
their waiver on Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to insult your lawn. I meant to say that I thought you liked it green and that you
Oh, I love
wanted
it
to
green.
keep it green,
It's
so that
because
their,
of the summer that we've
their
had.
prohibition on doing that sorts of things would be more negative to you than requiring a planting of a row of shrubs.
Yeah, so
So that's why
I'm
I was trying to-
100% for using, for having the non-pesticide, the non, you know, I'm
Okay.
more in favor of that than disturbing the land, you know, the shoreline of that pond.
Understood. But I wasn't trying to insult your lawn.
No,
I was
no,
trying
no,
to
it's
say
just-
that
it's been
I
a
thought
very
you would
jungle-like summer and
prefer it that way.
She's a very, very nice.
All right, so,
No, I know she is.
So-
We've had her,
so
yeah,
what we,
but
so what we
that
need,
one comment.
So hold on.
you want me to hold on? Okay.
Bushes in the
We're
middle
gonna-
of
Proper-
it.
There are, yeah, there's
As
some
long
smaller.
as they stay and they're not
Yeah.
removed.
Yep.
No, there's.
No,
yeah.
there's, so that's the thing, is we're not being invasive at all without, outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. That's, you know, for what, the project that we're doing, that
Yeah,
area
they
of the
didn't
yard
put
is.
one in there.
okay, all right, very good. So in order to try to close this out, we need a motion. And obviously, the opinions are known. Since I'm the chairman tonight, I'll only vote if there's a tie. So we need someone to make a motion and see where that motion
Well,
goes.
I think the motion is still to issue a negative number 3 determination.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
It would be the special conditions
How many
that you were
conditions?
voting
What
on.
they are.
If there are any, that's why I would like to have a motion made with the negative 3 and to see what conditions are imposed, if any. We'll vote it and see where it goes and see if I have to vote or not.
Well, we're not going to end up with a tie, right? No?
Well,
1, 2, 3.
he's voting.
Yeah, we could.
If it goes 2 and 2, I'm going to be sucked into voting. So somebody kindly author a motion that we can put up for vote.
I make a motion that we issue a negative 3 determination, and as one of the conditions, to include the standard no pesticide, herbicide language, and low nitrogen, phosphorus-free fertilizer condition.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Nope.
There is no discussion. All those in favor of this motion signify by
Just to say
saying
that the other standard conditions would be for the erosion control and pre- and post-construction, just to make sure those are in there.
aye. Here. So amended.
Okay, that's it.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
It's a tie, which means I have to vote. I will vote for the motion.
So Sean and Joe, no. Al, Deb, and Doug, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Still a good project.
Still,
Still a very good
All right,
project.
so now that we have a motion voted upon, Jen, what else do you require from them in order to get them going?
nothing. I will issue them their negative determinations with the majority conditions.
Very good. All right, do a good job, guys.
Will do. I had a quick question. You said that you had a list of recommendations or something. We don't have access to that?
No, I describe the project to them and list what I recommend that they require in their,
Okay,
or
so,
what their votes are.
So is that something that we would get our hands on?
If you'd like a copy, sure. I can get.
And that would be in the conditions that you're going to, that would carry
Well, no,
forward?
the conditions
no,
that,
these
my
recommend-
recommendations was that they do their standard buffer zone, which was one of the options, but
Yep.
they said no to
Yep,
that.
yep, okay.
So the standard, I know what you're saying, the standard language for the no herbicide, no pesticide.
Yeah, like, so that would be in your decision. That would be,
It'll all
okay,
come
that
out
would be
right.
laid out,
It's a-
and then,
It's a standard condition in our orders of conditions, and I can get you.
Yeah, there'll be a narrative.
Okay,
For
very
you to
good.
follow, and of course.
and we can move forward and order our, that was a question that I had. Now that we've,
Is there an appeal period
No
on
appeal
RDA?
period on RDA.
So there's
Yeah,
no
there
appeal
are-
period, so you
there
don't
are
have to wait it out.
technically, but nobody ever.
Yeah.
It's just from another order that we'll do tonight.
Okay, all
That's
right.
what it would,
Okay.
what it would say.
all right. And then in regards to the bark mulch sock that
Yes.
needs to be installed, and so that would go on the plan that we have?
Correct.
That would go on the erosion control kind of half moon there?
Yep.
And we can purchase that from Middleton Supply Company?
I think there's a couple erosion control
Yep.
suppliers on our
And
website.
How much footage do you need for that? So that
think
erosion
you
control,
wanna
half moon there?
Do you want to have a pre-construction meeting?
Yeah, we can.
Okay,
you
I
can-
don't want details, yeah, I'm sorry.
What I'd rather, let Jen go to the site, pre-construction meeting with you, mark it out where she wants it
Okay,
done.
yep.
No mistakes that way.
Perfect.
The boundaries will be marked, and everybody will be happy.
We
Wonderful.
typically want the sock in place though.
I can,
prior- You can talk about
once
that
it's
ahead
there,
of
they
time.
can send us a photo or something.
could.
It's fine.
Yeah, just refer back. When confused, refer back. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Okay,
appreciate your
and
time.
just so you know, that isn't your order. It will just be that one condition that's
Yep.
in yours. Like there's nothing else that's on that page would be in your order of condition. Nothing.
Yeah, I'll cut it down to that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We're often accused of being too agreeable. This was the longest debate on RDA ever. For healthy reasons.
We tend to debate longer when it's
Easy.
something that's not quite so critical. When it is critical, it's real easy to do. All right, thanks, guys. All right, we are now going to commence to the notice of intent section. The first one, 242-1739 Ray Street subdivision, request to continue to 9/26/18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second discussion. None, all those
You
in
guys did
favor?
that too quick. Who voted?
Be Deb.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous, that stands continued. 242-1740, 1160 Great Pond Road, North Andover Solar.
So you had asked at the last meeting that the wetland line be reflagged, and I go out, and it had been since 2012, since the wetland had been reviewed.
Right.
So,
Right, there were no flags in place.
Correct.
And the whole discussion was about
so,
delineating or identifying.
right. So they identified the portion of the line that is closest to the work, and Savannah and I went out and reviewed it last week sometime. It doesn't appear anything's changed. The field had recently been hayed, so it was easy to get in there and review, which we did, and I would recommend. The only thing else I had asked them was, once, just noticing the hay process that's ongoing on the site, what would happen to those fields once the solar was installed, and you did investigate and could present to them what the finding was?
Sure. I think the Brooks School, once the solar field is in place, there's going to be less room to hay. So they're not quite sure if it makes sense to hay the field, but they'd like to leave that door open. The field will be mowed at minimum, but whether it's financially practical to still hay the field, I guess is to be determined. So if there will be access to the field for equipment to get down there. So if we could, leave that door open for them to do what they've been doing with the field, that would be great.
I would,
Is that a curiosity, or is that something that seems to be very important in this area?
Well, I guess one of my reasons is that in looking at the prior order, you had required monumentation of the 25-foot no disturb around that wetland.
yeah.
When they're haying right up to the edge of it. So,
Right up the edge of the wetland?
Well, that's,
Correct.
but that's no longer necessary. Once they get their equipment in place,
right, but it's still a hay field, so if they were going to monument it, they would,
when it reverts, I can help you here. When it reverts from a hay harvest field to a maintenance operation, the 25-foot no disturb zone is observed in a maintenance operation. Maintenance would be the use of a rotary cutter, what some guys routinely call a chopper or a shredder. That's maintenance. That's just care and maintenance, just like anybody else. If they bring in harvesting equipment in to mow it, tether it, rake it, bale it, and harvest it off the field, different story. They qualify for an exemption, and they can mow up to wherever they can get, provided they don't sink in. But if it converts over to maintenance, they're still allowed to cut, but they now have to observe the 25-foot no disturb.
And Jen's question's an important one. If our order conditions the last time around required monumentation,
Yeah.
and this goes in the same direction,
So
we
it's gotta-
require
it's gotta be-
monumentation.
gotta be-
Then regardless of the exemption, you're not gonna, the monumentation is gonna say you can't mow it inside it,
Well, they can mow up to the 25. Yeah.
whether it's
That shouldn't
maintenance,
interfere with their project.
whether it's maintenance or hay.
I guarantee you it should interfere with their
Okay,
project.
okay.
If the way I'm seeing this project here, there's not going to be enough land left to anybody bother to bale hay. As somebody that bales hay, it's so much work to get in there to do the job. If you can't come out with enough bales to cover the fuel of the tractor, you're not going to bother. And that's exactly what happens in small fields. As they get developed and chopped and acreage taken away, you just don't waste your time, because it's a labor-intensive job. You want to come out with some hay.
So hearing everything I've heard, we wouldn't shy away from continuing to require 25-foot no disturb monuments.
we could put some, you can read the language when we go to review the order, but there could be some language in there that if hay, if it is continually harvested for hay, that, monumentation could
Well, I
be
think
placed in such a way that it wouldn't impede the harvest or
I think that's something we need to
something.
know before this thing closes out, or before we write a decision.
I don't think they really know until that.
We can't leave it open.
Well, we can't, because that's the reason we can't, because if it's a maintenance operation, we have to identify a no disturb zone.
We could always impose the 25-foot no disturb, and if they decide they want to hay it, they have an agricultural exemption right now. They could just continue to,
Okay, so what do you want for monumentation, so that they can be flexible?
well, we're going to review the order, but I would say leave it in,
All right.
and unless they tell us they're going to hay,
Okay, that's
they
fair
would be
enough, right?
required to
That give you enough
monument.
flexibility so that you're not handcuffed?
Yeah, I mean, the requirement was in there last time, so that's reasonable.
Well, that's why, in reading it, I just wanted to make sure that all the issues, and having been out and see the hay operation,
Any other comments or questions on that, guys? Any other thoughts? Anything else?
close an issue,
So what do you
unless
want
you
to
have
close?
anything else.
You want us to close it?
Yep. Unless there's any, I don't think there's anyone here.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There is none. Any abutters? No abutters answer. All those in favor of closing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. You're closed. Thank you, guys.
I think we'll get that out.
What's that?
I said we'll get that out.
Oh, thanks. Good night.
242-1720, an amendment to the order of conditions for 33 Regents Place, Norse Environmental. Mr. Melvin is presenting.
I have some photos for you from the site. So you'll recall, I think the last meeting or the meeting before, you just approved a minor modification on this to allow for it, but since then they decided they want to expand the backyard,
Oh, no kidding.
remove some trees, do some grading.
No kidding.
So it no longer fell under the minor category.
Yeah.
applicant for the project at 33 Regency Place. As Jen mentioned, the plan was brought before you earlier this summer to install the pool and the retaining wall. At this point, the applicant would like to expand the rear yard and therefore push the wall closer towards the 50-foot no-build zone. The wall is outside the 50-foot build, but a portion of the grading does fall within the 50-foot no-build. It is approximately 9 feet closer to the wetlands than the previously approved wall. And the modified plan, as shown on the right here, would result in approximately 770 additional square feet of disturbance in the buffer zone. Two of the issues Jen had mentioned earlier today was showing a stockpile area. So the area along the back of the driveway would be used for the stockpile. And she also asked that we locate the access drive, which is being accessed through Lot 6 to the right of the property. So they're accessing from the road and curving into the site. I taped it in off of the siltation barrier. It appears to be outside the 100-foot, but the hay bales do extend across the entire rear of that lot as well. I'll be glad to answer any specific questions the commission may have.
So you, among other things, you've moved the wall further to the back, which gets it closer to the wetland.
Yes.
Is that wall within 50 feet?
No.
It's not within 50 feet?
No.
Okay.
It goes, there's one portion that comes within a couple feet of it, but no portion extends within.
A couple feet of the 50?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that call out, do you call that out on the plan, TJ?
The 50-foot?
The closest point to the wall to the 50?
It's right at the 50.
So it's through this arch before the radius starts.
Okay.
The 50-foot line's rather faint and a little difficult to
I
see.
think one of the conditions that should probably get added to the amended order is a requirement for an as-built as soon as the footings for the wall are placed, so that we know it's in the right spot.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you, I just couldn't see that.
Yeah, and that was exactly my line of question, is with the wall height being what it is, it in itself becomes a structure. So, you know, even though we would typically think of it as a barrier, but in this instance, it isn't, it's a structure. Other than moving the wall and that access in from the right, it really, nothing much has changed from the prior discussion on this spot, right?
No, the pool was a minor modification. They added
But
that.
that was the last time we talked about it, right?
Right.
Oh, but we had continued, we never closed that.
No, we issued a minor modification, but they had just added sort of further up, like a straight wall across the back. But for whatever reason, enough grading information wasn't provided or something, and they came to me with a new wall. And when I asked the chair and the vice chair if that sort of still fell within the modification, they were a little concerned about the changes in grading and topography. But then when I went back to the consultant, and it wasn't you, TJ, it was someone else, but they said, well, if we have to come back to the commission, we might as well, push it back further and make it bigger. And that's when I said, well, we're getting into the territory where you're not just making tweaks, you're full-blown adding something new to the plan that should go back to DEP and back to the commission. So here we are.
Okay, understood, I'm all set.
Do you have any questions or comments?
Tree removal.
And the tree removal.
Pardon?
I said, and there's tree removal.
And how many trees are going to be removed?
Quite a few. I forget the exact number. I didn't really have a lot of concern with, if you look at the photos, there's a whole bunch of dead pines down one end. They're like scrawny and don't have any needles on them. But there are some bigger trees behind the wall, and they're between 50 and 25. There's one maple in particular, it's multi-trunked, which is the reason the consultant said they flagged it, but it's alive, and I didn't see
Is it outside the 50?
inside.
The trees are inside the 50, but
Yeah.
outside the no disturb?
Right.
Okay.
They're also outside of the limit of work, so if there needs to be some thought given to how they're going to be removed.
We're just going to ask, given how they're going to be removed and if the intention is to leave the stumps on the ground or to stump them.
Also got the invasive vines on the roof.
Do we know that?
I do not. what would the commission prefer? To be stumped or to just leave the stumps in
To
the
leave
ground?
the stumps, as minimal ground disturbance as you can within the buffer zone, without providing additional erosion controls.
Okay, yeah, I can't imagine the applicant would have an issue. It's pretty well grown in back here, and especially with the installation of the wall, it's going to create a real defined edge of the lawn and really no possible, well, I shouldn't say possible, but no further disturbance of the buffer zone.
Did we not include monumentation requirements because they were so far away before?
This whole subdivision has monumentation, it's already out there.
All right, so it's not like we're getting any closer that we should be concerned about that. By cutting these additional trees, does the monuments need to get pushed further out?
One of the, one of the monuments was either on a tree that was proposed to be removed or very close to it, so it was on a big white pine. I can't remember if that one was proposed to be removed.
Picture of it, don't you?
Yeah, you could see it. I think it's right next to it, right next to the big maple that's, it's either on the maple that's proposed to be removed or next to it. It's on the back, Deb, on the bottom left. Yeah. Is there a monument on that bottom tree?
Somewhere either there, I'm not sure.
Is that,
Yeah, there is
That could be a monument.
Yeah, I think it's on that big maple.
okay. So would you be,
We figured the closest one was like 36 to 39 feet away, I think was the measurement.
so the maple should be saved then, since it's living? And are you going to kind of guide them as to which trees they can cut?
Well, I think that's up to you. A lot of them, again, there's one that's growing sideways with vines all over it. I didn't have any issue with that. There were the dead pines. You know, the maple was technically flagged because it was multi-trunked and it could become an issue at some point. Again, if you want to let them take it out. I was just pointing out that it is alive and healthy and leafed out and has a marker on it. I took a picture of the bottom of it and the top, obviously not getting it all in one photo.
We should go and cut the vines too.
Yeah, they should get the bittersweet off it, yeah.
No other questions?
Sean,
No questions?
No question.
all right?
So I think what we haven't concluded is, other than minimizing ground disturbance, we haven't defined how it is they're gonna take these trees out, whether it's craning them out, or frozen ground, conditions, we're gonna cut them and drag them out, but whether we wanted to cut it and leave it, which I don't think they wanted a new house.
No.
So I think we've got to be clear in what our direction is on that. And because they're removing trees, we need to have some sort of consideration for either moving the silt fence further back behind it and defining the no disturb area because it's now disturbed. And then ultimately, what do we do with the monumentation? Those are all things that really comes down to which trees and what method are they going to use that we haven't heard yet. I guess we know which trees, but once they get in there, if they're simply going to fell them and not crane them out, then there's going to be other stuff that comes down with it.
Well, that maple's over their new pool, so, or, back, but like, right in line with their new pool. It's, back another 20 feet or 30 feet or whatever,
The
but.
canopy's over.
Right. Well, it's not, no, it doesn't lean. I'm just saying it's.
The pool's already in?
The pool's already in. Yeah,
So they have
that's,
to crane it out.
yeah, that's what I'm guessing, but they didn't really say. The right side of the lot isn't disturbed, the left side of the lot is already constructed. Everything in gold is constructed right
There's two
now.
options. We can either require them crane it out, or we continue till we get the answer.
And we condition that.
Just condition, let
We
them,
condition it, and then if they, whatever.
Deal with it.
Deal with it, yeah. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that one, that's easy. What else is concerned?
no mechanized equipment access. and removal
No
of
machinery beyond the limit of work shown on the plan, I guess, would be the way to do it.
I would agree.
trees. If they do both of those things, they don't need to modify their erosion control line.
Right. Oh, I did recommend that they back it with silt fence when you're constructing an 8-foot wall and bringing in all that material. I don't know that we'd want to rely just on a sock.
stockpile location?
Yeah, Lou had asked for that this morning when I talked to him, and
So,
they added it.
They added.
So we heard the access proposal, they're showing it on their plan, it's record.
Well, that wasn't the previous access proposal.
That's why we were
Because it
protecting
was
the
over the
drainage.
driveway, and you had asked that they protect the drainage swale at the front end of the driveway when they originally proposed the modification.
So we need some language that spells that out, that says the access is proposed on the side lot. If that proves to be infeasible and they need to use the frontage, then the drainage, then the rest of that language of protecting the easement stays in place. I think it's expanding that same condition.
They'd have to take down the fence. They already put the wrought iron fence across the front of the lot.
I mean, that's, that's one of the things that happens when you change your mind.
Yeah, that's just exactly what I'm trying to see. How can you change your mind at this point?
So if the front used protect drainage swale,
The adjacent lot's undeveloped still, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the access is really already in place.
Okay.
Right.
They've clearly driven through there.
and because we have an order of conditions on that lot too, they need to get a construction entrance in there if they're gonna, they were trucking material and storing materials from other parts of the subdivision on that lot. So they need to get a construction entrance in there.
Just at the street, okay, yeah, it looks like there was one at some point, but I'll...
So you want one clearly identified on the plan, Jen?
It's not on this plan, it's on lot 6.
Do you want it identified onto this plan as well?
There is one, so they have an order of conditions. They just need to, if they're gonna use that lot, they need to install that construction entrance, so they're not tracking.
So that'll be a pre-construction condition then?
It's actually a pre-construction condition for lot 6. They have an order already.
Okay, anyway.
I think we can
I'll just make them
make
institute
mention of
it.
it, especially with the access point.
Well, I'm gonna do what you said and mention the new access and that,
If we just expand one more sentence, and because of that access
Yeah.
across the abutting lot, this condition is now part of whatever that other order is.
yeah.
Unfortunately, the register's not going to cross-reference those. We're going to have to recover.
I have to write it for the next meeting anyway, so it's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. Any other requests? Any other requests or comments? So you want us to
Move and close?
Close and issue in
close an
21
issue?
days.
So looking for a motion.
Move to close.
Second?
Motion and a second discussion. Abutters, any abutters to this project that want to be heard? None answer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous, closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
General business. 242-1631, a COC request for 294 Chestnut Street. Request to continue to September 26th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. 242-1624, a COC request for 56 Montero Way. It looks like we have somebody here.
Yes.
So I have, hold 1 second and I'll get the,
Give us a second to queue it up and
Sure.
oh, that's not great. Would you rather your photos and things of,
Yeah, I think those photos do justice.
yeah, they do, I think they do better than that plan does.
Okay, so my name is Evan Govendran. I work for DeRosa Environmental. I'm here on behalf of the homeowners of 56 Montero, Chris Heitzman and Christine Nasvera. They submitted a notice of intent application in 2014 to reconfigure their pool area. Since then, we have planted a mitigation area, a rain garden, and the certified engineer has written a statement of compliance that all construction has been installed according to the approved plans. We have installed the conservation monuments. We were a little confused at first as to where to put them since it was like their backyard, but
It's a strange wetland.
Yeah, Jen met us out there and she walked us through it. So we installed 10 conservation monuments along the wetland line. And
They pulled some purple loosestrife that was growing in the
Yeah.
restoration area. It wasn't a lot, but there was a little.
You just can't help yourself, can you?
Well, get it out of there before it went to seed.
Well,
'cause it,
yeah,
It really
exactly.
wasn't a lot.
We're lucky that the beetles are doing so well, but yeah, it's good to cut them.
Oh, I get it. I see what you did there.
I'm curious, there's a monument with narrative on it, what does that say?
Oh, that's our no dumping, no, it has all the rules and regulations. Yeah. We have rounds and squares now, so.
Okay.
So I think we did 3 square and 7 round.
It's a good mix.
Who designed them?
We did. Back in the Heidi days, where have you been? But so, yeah, this has been a long time coming, mostly because, here's there's the pool area. We have all our compliance letters and forms, fees, and plans and photos. So I think Savannah reviewed this, but she said there were a few things that weren't constructed that were proposed, so overall the impact is less than what was proposed.
The applicant knows that once we issue the compliance, that the order is terminated and they can't go in and do those additional things
Yeah.
anymore, right?
That is understood, right?
Yes.
That's the photo of the rain garden in the restoration area, not the photo, the plan. So recommendation is to grant it a full and final COC.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Any abutters that want to be heard? No abutters answer? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, 2421656, extension request, 95 Olcott Way.
So I don't think anyone's here on this one, but we have been receiving monitoring reports on the site. Construction is ongoing. They had some setbacks in the beginning with a change in contractor, but I recommend granting a 1-year extension.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. There's none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that is unanimous. 2421662, an ORAD extension request, 0 High Street. It appears there is someone here. Surprise, surprise, how are you?
Good, how are you? My name is Joseph Orzel. I'm a senior wetland scientist at Wetlands Preservation Incorporated. We're just here tonight requesting a 1-year extension to an ORAD that was issued back on November 24th, 2015. The site flagging has been reviewed and refreshed. I met with Jennifer out at the site, and we looked at the wetland flags, and I think everything is still accurate. That's basically it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay.
We walked the whole line, much to our detriment, probably. Poison ivy and all sorts of other things aside. Nothing really seems to have changed out there. It is what it is. And the flags in the ball fields, we found enough of them, despite mowing, to confirm where they were. The swale that runs around the site, largely in the same condition, if not more so, with growth and things moving in.
Okay.
So I recommend reapproving. I guess there is no such thing as an ORAD extension form. You don't get many ORAD extensions, so
Right,
I'm
I
just
don't
going to
believe
issue
there
it
is.
on an order of conditions, the extension form for order of conditions. It's the best we can.
No objection.
Okay.
But you can't extend them, right?
Yeah, you can extend them. I mean, generally by extending an order of conditions, you extend the delineation. So I don't see why you can't extend it, and we did review it, so DEP does not provide a form.
There are no abutters here, and we have no objections on file, is that correct?
No.
Okay. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. There is none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, following the list, hunting dates
So
for discussion.
hunting season has changed this year to bow hunting begins on October 1st.
Correct.
So if you look at our regulations, they say that in-town residents may apply between 9 and 3 during the first full 2 weeks in October, but it's going to start 2 weeks before October.
So these are regulations, not a bylaw. It's a regulation.
No, this is
We should modify the regulations.
We just need to amend them. We need to amend the regs.
Right, to say, I'll just say
match
two.
the state law.
Right, to 2 weeks before the established hunting date under,
Under Mass General Laws, Department of Fish and Game.
Right.
Whatever they set as the season, we want to give people 2 weeks
2
ahead of
weeks
that. to
before.
apply.
And
Yeah.
then, so for non-residents, should it be 1 week before?
Well, the residents get preference.
Right,
So
so they,
you're only going to get non-residents if there's any spots left.
right, but are we going to give it the full 2 weeks before we let non-residents? Or do we want to allow 1 week for residents only, and then the second week before?
Whatever it says now,
Yeah.
just make the
I-
dates coincide with the state.
So,
I think
it
that's
said
the way
during
we
the
did it,
first,
Jen.
it used to start the last week of October, so
Yeah.
it said during the first full 2 weeks in October, out-of-town applicants may apply during similar hours during the second full week.
Yeah.
Oh, no, so it was, right.
We discussed that initially when we started this. We clearly, our intention was clear to give.
Residents 2 weeks in advance, and the next week would be the
Right.
non-residents.
That's right.
Non-residents.
And we
So
want to-
we're now,
all
we're
we
just
wanna
going
do is
to,
change the starting date.
We just want to mirror that.
to whatever the starting date is,
Yeah.
whenever hunting season, bow hunting season
Consistent
begins.
with the Fish and Wildlife.
Yep, Mass Gen,
regulations.
MGL, yep, please.
Okay, so done at your vote.
Well, motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? There is none. No about. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
There wouldn't be any abutters because we just added that to the agenda because it just became aware, but I don't
Well, I'm
think,
just reading from the agenda, right?
Gotcha.
All right. Last on the agenda is an enforcement order violation discussion. It'll be a discussion only, 148 Main Street. We're discussing the fines. The record will reflect that Doug is recusing himself from this discussion, unless Doug wants to take a seat in the audience as an abutter, which I think you can do.
It's his right. It's his
You
right
have
to do
you have
so.
every right to do that. You don't have to. It's totally up to you.
You know, I'll just sit here and listen.
Okay, it's up to you, but if it was me, I'd sit out there and ask questions, but it's,
well, we all know the sort of back and forth we have with our residents behind us, and it's not just the condominiums, but we have some back and forth. So we have recently had an enforcement order against Sutton Pond about spreading of mulch, which was addressed, and thankfully Sutton Pond management took us around. We worked with the landscaper. Mulch won't be, blown into those areas where it's not supposed to be anymore, and I think we're on a good page. I think I found out from a contractor when I found out that the road back to the condominiums was closed the other day. They were digging up the concrete on either side of the bridge, to which I had not been made aware or not been asked to render any decision about filing or even asked if they claimed it was an emergency. The board told them it was an emergency. They tried to say it was the building inspector who said it was an emergency. The building inspector just said he would recommend fixing the bridge before fixing the concrete, but he didn't declare any emergency. So after discussion with the chair and knowing full well that the board should know to get in contact with us, especially when work is that close to resource area, because you have the stream on one side and the pond on the other, we just issued for violation for work within, I told them to finish. They had already dug up all the concrete, so it didn't make any sense to stop the work at that point. So I just asked, we just issued a fine, a $100 fine for violation.
fine against whom?
It was issued to the Sutton Pond Condominium Trust, care of the chair of the condominium trust.
Is there a management company that is actually under the direct control?
It was a vote of the, to my understanding, it was a vote of the board. It was a vote of the board that allowed the work to occur, because I talked to one of the board members.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Doug.
I'm going to, I think I'm going to get my question answered in a minute.
Okay.
So what I'm interested in knowing, if you know.
I've already
only if you
issued the
know.
fine,
If you
by
don't
the
know,
way.
maybe I might find out from the audience, who actually authorized the work?
I was under the impression that the board of directors took a vote to authorize the work. I'm sure the management company contracted to do the work, but the board of directors took the vote to do That was what I was told. Again, I am only going on what I was told.
I have a couple of really baseline concerns out here. One is we keep talking about the roadway and the concrete and these things. That whole thing out there is a dam. It's a structure of a dam.
Correct.
Nobody should be monkeying with that, period.
Right.
And we've impressed that upon many parties in the past. They all are very much aware of the significance of what they have out there. You know, you're not just landscaping a parking lot or a garden. You are fooling around with a structural dam, and could have catastrophic implications. And if they're not aware of it, this should bring it to their attention yet again. And I say again, I know at least 3 or 4 other circumstances where they know about this. So with all that being said, and with all the other violation issues out there, what I don't want is any punitive action or any distribution of fine out through the owners. The owners are just victims to this mismanagement by a very small select group. Those are the folks who ought to be issued the fine and paying the fine. That's my position on that. And but moreover, is at some point in time, these good little fix-em-upper ideas, it could result in the breach of a dam with catastrophic implications downstream, including wiping out Sutton Street.
Well,
We can't fool around with this.
Have we ever considered issuing a cease and desist order on that kind of an activity? It might be in our best interest to issue such an order to that company, whoever it is, to cease and desist work on this portion of the property that constitutes the dam, so as not to have a catastrophic event. I think if we tell them they cannot, they simply cannot.
I'd be very cautious to not issue a cease and desist order, because the dam is regulated by the Dam Safety Office. I don't mean an N, I mean with the M only.
Okay.
And, which is part of FDR's Office of Dam Safety, which is out of West Boylston. They handle all of the dams across the entire Commonwealth. Every dam has a management
But
practice.
this doesn't sound like this is dam work. This sounds like this is aesthetic work.
But any
It was
work that's done on it, it falls under their purview.
So
They shouldn't be fooling around with it.
unless they go before that regulatory body that you make reference to, why should we allow any work?
What I'm saying is if we issue a cease and desist and there is in fact something that becomes important, I don't want our cease and desist to stand in the way for them to go out
Well,
and
then
manage
if
the dam.
something's important, they come in and request that we lift it for that purpose of whatever it is they're going to do.
Well, I
Otherwise-
think that's not necessarily conflict, that's where the regs align. Because of the activity that they might need to do, they still have to apply for us, permission through us.
So we would do no harm by issuing a cease and desist, because they have to apply anyway.
I'm just not liking the word cease. I think we're on this right track, but we just need to impress
You
upon
come up with
them.
a better word that's going to prevent what you describe as a catastrophe, and I'm in. Because you clearly know more about this than,
So we've just issued a fine with enforcement order?
I didn't issue an enforcement order because the work is all done. There's nothing to enforce. I mean, other than if we wanted an after-the-fact filing, I could issue an
what's to
enforcement
stop
order.
them from doing it again? Paying another fine.
Right.
How long did the work take to complete?
2 days.
2 days.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, that what's to stop it? There's no remedy in place to stop it from happening again.
But we don't, I mean,
And then you're chasing them after the fact.
but, I mean, we don't issue cease and desist in perpetuity against a property. Technically, any activity within 100 feet of a resource area or 200 feet of a stream
All right.
should come to us. And
Okay.
if they do it again, it's going to be even, it won't be just a one-time fine, I would guess.
Okay, I guess I will defer to,
I just don't know how to do the perpetual cease and desist.
I'm
They
just-
should come to file for anything that they do, as Joe said. They should just be in front of
I'm hearing Joe
us.
loud and clear.
Right.
And
Hopefully
I
they heard
understand
us,
exactly what happens when you got the wrong guy working on the wrong thing.
hopefully they heard us loud and clear.
I hope, nothing more. I mean, they group of well-intentioned folks think they're doing a small little thing, and they don't realize what they're doing.
You know the story of the road to hell,
Yeah.
paved with good intentions. I'm just saying,
Story, that was a way of life.
well, okay. I don't live down there. I'm not gonna get wet.
Okay.
So with my little tirade there, what I really want to make sure is that the fine is levied to and paid by those responsible and not simply conveyed through the entire
I don't know that I
population
can
down there.
edit the fine. I issued it to the president of the condominium trust. I'm not really sure who pays that, but I'm guessing she won't pay it personally.
Well, the record says what it says if we conclude this discussion and
I guess I just
maybe the membership
I wanted to know, A,
find
that
out what it is we said.
you confirm that the action that between the chair and I, we came up with, and B, that you didn't want me to do anything else.
You want us to
You can ratify the fine, but,
ratify the fine and the action taken by you.
right, on behalf of the board.
We do have a question from an
I
abutter.
got a comment, you know. The work that was done, I considered it mostly cosmetic in nature.
Okay.
Because of some complaints that were made to the board by various residents, they didn't like the way it looked.
Okay.
So they went out there and made some, what I would classify as cosmetic improvements so that they covered up the concrete that had eroded away due to the salt action that's
Yep.
thrown on the bridge. And, I mean, it's already starting to crack.
So they didn't do a very good job.
But the issue is, they were told, the board was told, that they're dealing with the dam, that you really should have some professional engineer in there advising you whatever work you're going to do. And they sort of blew that off. So we already got an engineer. I don't know whether they do or not. And, it probably, I agree with Joe that the fine, if anything, should be paid by those that are in charge, not by the condominium association itself. I suspect that they'll do is take the money out of whatever budget they have to pay the fine. But, for $100, maybe that's not a big deal. The whole issue is that, they went ahead and did something about contacting the Conservation Commission before he, and that they shouldn't have done that. Whatever it takes to get it across to the board of directors that, we live with wetlands all around us. So there's not much that you can't do around the place. It's not going to be within 100 feet of the wetlands. And that they should ask ahead of time, so we don't have Mr. Smith coming in and yelling and screaming all the time every time.
And they generally do. They generally come. But I was shocked that they didn't on this particular thing.
Well, I made my suggestion. I know I get a little heavy-handed sometimes. If you want to get someone's attention to require compliance, there's only one or two ways you do it. You either give them a very heavy fine or you issue them a letter and tell them to stop working.
I think we issue them a letter at the very least. I don't think it goes to the extent of cease and desist, but I think we need to articulate very, very clearly in writing, much like Doug just said, most work that you do in the area requires some level of review, if not permitting. And in particular, recognize any work that's done along the roadway across the spillway of what's thought to be the roadway of the driveway up to Main Street is all a structural dam, and should be done with nothing less than complete engineering understanding and with all the necessary permits in place prior to undertaking the work. Any future activity will be dealt with sternly without permits obtained ahead of time. To that extent, I mean, just a slap across the wrist as hard as we can to get their attention. $100 fine only makes that sting a little bit more.
$100 amortized over how many residents it's irrelevant.
But I think it's on the record that, if there's another one that becomes more significant, I think we can whack them pretty hard.
Well, don't dismiss the idea of issuing a cease and desist order
And I'm happy to issue a
if
cease
the
and
problem persists.
desist for a specific activity. Like if this wasn't practically done by the time I got to it, I very well could have said stop and don't touch another thing until you come file with us. Which,
Well, more importantly, the filing's going to have some type of engineering to it.
Right.
And that's not something that's going to happen right away. And once they start breaking into it, it really could.
Interesting point. One of the meetings prior to this work being done, they were discussing it, some of the complaints about it, saying, when's it going to be done? They didn't say, they didn't offer any comments as to when it's going to be done. And I made a comment to the board. I mentioned that I was on the Conservation Commission. Before they do anything, check with the Conservation Commission. They basically blew me off. So
I rest my case.
they, I think you have to get a point. They do anything around this. Talk with the Conservation.
You're going to have to find a way to convey that message, Jen.
I will send the letter and make a phone call, because I have the number of the management company.
Okay. So I need a motion to ratify the action taken by the staff at 148 Main Street.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second to ratify. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and the record will reflect we have one recusal. Please, and thank you. I see nothing else on the agenda. Is there anything else you want to discuss?
Just the new order for, it's the decision. You do have it.
Solar farm.
Oh, the solar farm, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost identical to the one we previously issued, except we have made some updates to our
So it's
conditions since
242-17
2012.
1740, Jen, is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
Okay.
So with respect to the monumentation question, are we just going to leave it as written? Or do we want to allow some language in there that says if they're going to cultivate hay, cultivate and bale hay, harvest, thank you, that activity would be permitted with prior notice to the commission? Does that leave that door open?
We want to do
wide of a crack?
We want to leave a clear distinction between the practice of baling and harvesting hay versus mowing for maintenance purposes. We want a distinction in there. If you think it's necessary. If it's not necessary, don't reinvent the wheel.
It was there before, they didn't.
I think maybe, well, the hard part becomes that a lot of the wetland is in an open field.
Yeah.
So they're either going to mow it down or they're not going to mow it down. That's the short of it.
So let's monument it and make them maintain the 25.
Thanks.
I think if they decide to continue the agricultural use, they have 5 years before they lose, so they have the option of coming back to us and say, no, we're going to maintain the agricultural use.
Listen, mowing it for purposes of maintenance still qualifies as agricultural use. There are many.
You have to produce a crop. Under the Wetlands Protection Act, you have to produce a crop.
Gene Willis through.
Yeah, you have to produce something. There has to be a commercial activity. Maintenance mowing has no commercial product. Hay is the commercial product.
It absolutely does. It's under Chapter 61A, there is necessary related land. The definition of land that's taxable.
Yeah, but it has to be necessary and related to an agricultural activity, to which Brook School has none.
Well,
especially with conversion of the vast
majority of
to a solar farm.
We do have a new crop of graduates every year.
There's a crop right there. And there's a crop that I can go with right there.
Okay.
Good reference to a crop.
I will, maybe we could do a finding at the beginning. We could do a finding before the order of conditions, just stating something about the current agricultural use, and maybe that if...
But remember, too, we encourage open field mowing for purposes of species, too. And this area would clearly qualify for that as well, I guarantee you.
I'm not sure once it's a solar farm it will, but...
I bet you there's bobolinks in that field around.
They don't mow at a time of year that is appropriate for that, so... But I guess...
Trying to help you out here.
Yeah, we could put in there that annual mowing of the field is allowed.
In lieu of baling.
Well, we don't need to get into the baling. We can just say annual mowing of the field, either for hay or maintenance of the open field aspects, is allowed.
And that would be consistent with every field in town that we've dealt with.
But clear, we're not allowing mowing for maintenance within the 25.
Right, I agree. I agree.
And I think that was the wiggle they were looking for from us, is that they could be able to go in there
I
and
agree
harvest
with
hay inside the 25 in the future.
Yep.
All right, so I think it's somewhere after the condition 34 where we require the maintenance of a 25-foot and a 50-foot. I can make a condition, renumber, make a condition 35 that speaks to the fact that, if the field remains in agricultural use, it may continue to be mowed up to the wetland edge as is currently done. If the agricultural use is abandoned, a 25-foot no disturb shall be established, and annual mowing of the field up to the 25 may occur. Does that make sense?
It does. Because currently they can't go all the way up to the wetland, right?
Right.
Under the use.
When you're harvesting, you can go right up to it, right up to the very edge, yeah.
Okay. I will add a condition that says that. But everything else, the bonds remain the same, the erosion controls, they have a stormwater plan that under their land disturbance permit with the planning board requires maintenance. It was reviewed by Lisa. They need to file for a NIPTES permit for more than an acre of disturbance. All that stays the same.
Motion?
To adopt the order conditions for 242-1740 as amended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt as amended. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Motion?
So moved.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous, so we're closed.